Hey there, it's really good to be able to spend a few minutes with you this evening, and I hope you're blessed. I hope you've had a blessed day, or if you're watching this in the morning sometime, I hope it is a blessed day for you, and it's a privilege to spend a few minutes with you. Shout out to Caleb in Canada, my dear little brother, and I have a story tonight that I love this story, and I love it for so many reasons, but it's really familiar. It happened to David when he was just a youth, maybe 13, 14 years old, somewhere in there. We don't really know exactly his age. So he's a shepherd, been a shepherd for all of his life so far. And his dad had told him to go check on his brothers who were fighting for King Saul and that were at the valley of Elah. So David had gone to check on them. And as he went, he took gifts for them and stuff. And then he heard what was happening once he got there, that there was this champion from the Philistine line who would come out, a giant, some huge guy, 9 feet or something like that, just big, really big, huge, giant guy, Goliath, and taunt the army of Israel every morning and evening, 40 days. Send out a man to fight against me. If he wins me, we will be your servants. If we win, you'll be our servants, day after day. And David was shocked that they let him do this, that this giant could just do this. And so this is all pre-story. He has said that who is this uncircumcised Philistine to challenge the armies of the living God? And David knew who he was fighting for, right here. The giant was taunting the armies of Saul, and David said, no, they're not. We belong to God. So David is taken to the king and King Saul, and because he's willing to go and fight. And Saul is dumbfounded and says, you can't go like that. This guy's been fighting since he is a youth, and you're but a youth. And so here, wear my armor. And that's where our story begins. So David strapped on King Saul's sheath and sword and tried walking around. But he's like, I cannot go in these. I've never tested them. Like, never trained in them. And so he took them off, and he took with him his shepherd's staff, and he went to the brook and chose 5 smooth stones, and he put them in his shepherd's bag that he had with him in his pouch. And then he went out to meet the champion, to meet the Philistine. Now the Philistine came out from the lines of the Philistines with his armor bearer in front of him, and he looked about and saw David. And he hated him because he was just a youth and ruddy and handsome. And he said, am I a dog? Do you come against me with sticks? And he cursed David by his gods. And then he said, come to me, and I'll feed your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. And David shouted back, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have this day defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will kill you and cut off your head. This day the Lord will deliver the carcasses. I will deliver the carcasses of the Philistine army, the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Then all the earth will know there is a God in Israel, and this assembly will know that the Lord does not save by sword or spear, for he will give you today into our hands. The battle is his. Then the Philistine arose and went toward the battle line, and David ran towards the Philistine, put his hand in his pouch and took out a stone and put it in the sling and slung it. And it struck the Philistine in the forehead, and the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell on his face on the ground. Then David ran over to him. David had conquered the Philistine without a sword in his hand, with a sling and a stone. Then he took the sword, this Philistine, out of the sheath, and he killed the Philistine with it, and he cut off his head. And when the Philistine army saw their champion was dead, they fled. That's the end of the story. This story is so brilliant. I was telling it to a woman in a coffee shop who had never heard it before recently, just last week, and she was astounded at the courage of David. She said to me, how did he have such confidence? How did he have such confidence? The Philistine was defying the armies of Saul, but David said, you have defied the armies of the living God. It seems like David knew who he was fighting for, didn't he? It seems like David, and what do you think about him? What do you learn about David? By the fact that he ran towards the battle line, by the fact that he refused to wear Saul's armor. The girl at the coffee shop was shocked at that. By the fact that he knew his own gifts and strength, right? What else do you learn about him? David, fighting a huge battle against a huge giant. He ran towards the battle line. David trusted in God, didn't he? But he also trusted in his own ability. He was confident because of who he knew he was. He knew his own strengths. Whew. It makes me wonder, I wonder how the giant felt when David didn't say that you've defied the armies of Saul, but said, these are the armies of the living God whom you this day have defied. I wonder how that struck the giant, or if it struck him at all, you know? Sometimes giants aren't too smart, right? They're just bullies. I wonder, do you have some giants that you're battling in your own life that this story might help you in? Like listening to the story or learning from the story might help you in how you battle those giants? Are there gifts that you already have that God's given you with which to battle? I wonder, is there something in this story you might find useful? I know there's so much. There's so many places we can dig in. The girl in the coffee shop was also astounded that David responded to the giant's taunt. He didn't just like run away. I said, what do you think he could have done? Run away, she said. But he didn't do that, did he? What did he do, guys? What did he do? Do you have any giants you're facing? May you have strength and confidence that God is bigger and he loves you and he's there with you. The battle is his, said David to the giant. The battle is God's. Remember who you fight for and fight in the best way. Stand firm. May you be blessed. Lord God Almighty, bless this people. Bye now.